infamously broke up the Bulls following their 1998 championship by not bringing back Phil Jackson, which resulted in Michael Jordan retiring and ultimately ending Chicago's dynasty. And we may have just seen the end of the Patriots dynasty as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady parted ways this offseason after 20 years in New England. Shannon, since you are the relationship expert on our show, do you see any similarities with these breakups?
I do, but Skip, the dynasties really started in civilization. When you talk about history, you talk about the Roman Empire, you talk about the Tang dynasty, the Zhou dynasties. And normally what happened with dynasties, Skip, they get overthrown. They go to war, they lose, and the winning party, they take over the empire. They get overthrown. The dynasties are overthrown. But in sports dynasties, very seldom do we see someone overthrow them. What normally happens is ego and greed get involved, and then the dynasty starts to fall apart. I want credit. You getting too much credit. I'm a big emphasis. Skip, like I said, and I said this the other day, Skip, Jerry Krause is the ultimate shield because he shielded Jerry Reinsdorf from the criticism that he rightfully deserves, Skip. Jerry Reinsdorf, if he wanted to keep this team together, he could have kept it together, Skip. He didn't like the fact because Michael Jordan in his last 2 years, Skip, started asking, I want my worth. I want $30 million one year. I want 33 the next. Well, Skip, if he keeps it together in 99, what's he going to have to pay Jordan? Scottie Pippen is up. Scottie Pippen's going to want somewhere between $12 and $15 million. Dennis Rodman was up. He was making $9 million this last year. He's going to want a raise. And Jerry Reinsdorf didn't want to pay that. But also, there was a lot of conflict. Jerry Reinsdorf didn't get the credit that he deserved. There have been very few times, Skip, when you look at it. And I look at, like, I don't know a whole lot of owners, and NFL owners, Skip. I played for two. I played for Mr. Bowl and his family, who still owns the team, and I played for Art Modell. Now, Steve Bisciotti was a minority owner. I've gotten to know him a little bit over the years by going back, but I know Mr. B. The other owner that I know fairly well from having conversation with is Mr. Kraft. Now, Skip, I believe Mr. Kraft would have kept this thing running. He'd have kept putting oil in the car. He'd kept changing the child. He'd get it serviced every 3,000 miles like he's supposed to. He would have let this thing roll along until the wheels fell off. But there was a dilemma going on that something, Skip, that he couldn't control. Now, he tried to control these egos as long as he could. He stomped one of them out in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, 2017, 2018. But this one he couldn't do anything with. And it finally got the best of him. And there are similarities because the egos in this was Coach Belichick and Tom Brady. Who deserves the lion's share of the credit? I drafted you. I put all this together. But Tom Brady said, but you ain't threw not one pass. You ain't made one audible, not one check. And Coach Belichick said, yeah, but I drafted you. All these pieces that surround you, I'm responsible for. Well, Michael Jordan's like, well, Jerry Krause, you ain't played no game with no fever. You ain't played no game with no migraine, hurt. Yeah, but I put it together. And so there are the similarities, Skip. But the one similarity is that Jerry Reinsdorf deserves a lot more blame for this falling apart than we've given him, Skip. And Mr. Kraft deserves none of the blame because he kept it together as long as he could. And then finally, when Tom's like, you know, I had enough. You want me back now, but I don't want to come back because you could have remedied this 3 years ago and you didn't. So, Skip, there are some similarities. And what mostly breaks up sports dynasty, Skip, is ego and credit. I need more, and my ego needs to be filled by saying it that I need more.
Okay. You make a lot of good points. I'm going to try to make mine because I think I have a pretty good feel for this. I was there in Chicago for the last Bulls run, 1998. I was the columnist of the Tribune, so I got to see the last dance from the inside out. And I agree with your big picture premise here. The similarity is that in both cases you have one man as a team builder who thinks that he's such a mastermind that he can rebuild or reload without the star player, the superstar GOAT player, and show the world that he can do it solo. So Jerry Krause believed with all his heart and soul he could start over without Phil Jackson and obviously then without Michael Jordan and show the world, watch this. I'll build another dynasty without Michael and without Phil. And obviously, Bill Belichick, as the team builder, who happens also to be the coach, he's saying, I can go solo here. I can rebuild my football team as the personnel director, and then I'll coach what I gather and show you I can win a Super Bowl without Tom Brady. Well, Jerry Krause failed miserably in his pursuit of another championship. And I believe Belichick also will fail miserably. So that's the similarity. Now to your bigger picture point. From the start, Jerry Reinsdorf backed Jerry Krause, had his back on every issue, completely empowered Jerry Krause to run the Chicago Bulls. Hands down, unchallenged, unquestioned. Jerry Krause, it's your baby. If you want to do that or that, you do that or that. And I'm not going to say a word because I hired you to run that show. My hands are clean over here. I don't want any part of that. Don't blame me, blame him. So you're right. And they were birds of a feather. I think they were kindred spirits, Krause and Reinsdorf. They were both little men who became big men. And they did like the limelight, and they did like credit to a fault, but neither one of them wanted any blame. But the point was, Jordan had to deal with that from the start. Krause didn't even draft Jordan. Rod Thorne did. And then here comes Jerry a year or so later. Was it a year? Yeah, a year later. And so he had to live with the guy who didn't draft him. And Michael lasted 13 years in Chicago before the dynasty was broken up. And it was broken up when he was 34. What happened in New England? The owner always had Brady's back, always supported Tom. In any conflict, Tom, yes, I'm with Tom. I choose Tom. And that's why Tom lasted 20 years in New England before it finally got to be too much for Tom. But even to the bitter end, according to the NFL Network report, remember, Kraft was still backing Brady. According to them, they were, or at least Robert Kraft and his son, were holding out hope that all the way to that faithful Monday night meeting in free agency week, they were hoping that he'd say, okay, let's do it another year. And when he chose Tampa, according to the NFL Network, they were willing to match the 2 years and $50 million that Tampa guaranteed Brady, 25 and 25 a year. So it looked like to the death, Robert Kraft is on Brady's side. Now, he propped up Belichick on any football matter. He just let anything slide. You know, to me, I'm going to say it one more time, Shannon. What happened in that Super Bowl loss to the Eagles, that's a fireable offense to me for a head coach. I still can't figure it out. Inexplicably, he benched Malcolm Butler for the whole game. The one player who had played the most snaps on his defense, his best DB, is benched while Nick Foles throws the all-time Super Bowl party on Belichick's defense to the tune of 41 points, and they win 41-33. It felt sabotagey to me on Brady as he throws for a playoff record, 505, puts up 33, and loses. So to me, it was already looking like at that point, Belichick's going to do everything in his power to make it harder and harder on Tom Brady, but Kraft wouldn't intervene on that. He would back off on that. But when push came to shove, Jimmy G or Tom, no, I'm sorry, Bill. Nope, you're going to have to trade. I order you to trade Jimmy G. And he gave Jimmy G away to the 49ers for a mere second-round pick, which I thought was a spite trade. So to me, the crux of the difference is Kraft supports the quarterback, while Reinsdorf on the other side only supported the GM.
Another difference, Skip, is that in Chicago, the GM hated the head coach. In New England, the GM loves the head coach because they're the same person. so it's like the GM got along great with the GM got along great with the head coach. And Skip, what happens is that because Jerry Krause had won those championships, you know, Skip, how it goes. When you win, the owner is willing to give the general manager a little more leeway, a little more leeway, a little more leeway, a little more leeway until until at one point, the fact of the matter is that Jerry Reinsdorf would even consider trading Scottie Pippen. But Jerry Krause had convinced him, like, if we can get some great value, we should. And Jerry Reinsdorf's like, okay, if you can get great value. And that's what happened with Coach Belichick, Skip. He had won so much. They had been so successful that even Mr. Kraft entertained it. That's why he didn't have a problem. Think about all the guys. He traded Seymour. He traded Logan Mankins. Logan Mankins was all-decade guard. He let Ty Law walk out the door, Willie McGinnis. He let a lot of guys go. And Mr. Kraft didn't blink an eye because he had been so successful, Skip. Who am I to argue with that? It wasn't until that way, like,